Attendance भी note कर लेना ठीक है। अस्सलाम वालेकुम रहमतुल्लाहि व बरकातुहू। अशहदु अल्ला इलाहा इल्लल्लाह वहदहू ला शरीका लहू व अशहदु अन्ना मुहम्मदन अब्दुहू व रसूलुहू। अम्मा बअदु फ़अऊज़ु बिल्लाहि मिनश शैतानिर रजीम। वइज़ा क़ील लहुम आमिनू कमा आमनन नासु क़ालू वनु'मिनु कमा आमनस सुफ़हा अला इन्नहुम हुमुस सुफ़हा वलाकिन ला यअलमून। By the grace of Allah, the Almighty, we have been covering the first 17 verses of Surah Al-Baqarah, which are often recited in Salat, in our homes, at the Masjid. Our beloved Imam, Hazrat Amir al-Mu'mineen, Khalifatul Masih al-Khamis, Ayyadahullah Ta'ala bin Nasr al-Aziz, also recites them very frequently in his Salat as well. Currently, we are going through verse number 14. In our last Quran class, we covered up until verse number 12 and 13, and today we will actually start with verse number 14. I hope to, inshallah ta'ala, cover this entire verse tonight. Before we look at the root analysis and the detailed message underlying this verse, I first and foremost want to go over the split word translation of this verse itself, which is as follows. Va means and, iza means when. Qila means it is said, and when it is said, wa iza qila, and when it is said, lahum means to them. Wa iza qila lahum, and when it is said to them, aminu. Aminu is imperative, and it means believe. Aminu, and when it is said to them, believe. Kama, kama means like. Amana nasu, amana means believe or believed. Annas means people. So when it is said to these folks to believe the way honorable people have believed, or the way generic masses have believed, qalu, they say, means do we, or shall we, or it's a question mark basically. Anu'minu, shall we believe? Kama amana sufaha, the way amana believed. As-sufaha means foolish. When it is said to them, believe like other people have believed, they reply back by saying, shall we believe the way foolish people or ignorant people have believed? Allah, Allah means beware. Innahum, surely they, and then Allah Ta'ala uses the word hum again. Surely they, yes indeed they are as-sufaha, the foolish people. They are the ignorant ones, they are the foolish ones. Walakin la ya'lamun. Wala, waw means and, lakin is the same word which is used in Urdu language as well, which is lakin, or but. Walakin, however, la ya'lamun, they do not know. So this is the word-for-word translation. The entire translation of the verse is, and when it is said to them, now remember, the one who is making this statement are believers, are the Muslims. And the ones to whom this statement is being made are the hypocrites. And when it is said to them, believe as other people have believed, they say, shall we believe as the foolish have believed? Beware, it is surely they that are the foolish, but they do not know. In this verse of the Holy Quran, there are two unique roots that have appeared. The first one is as-sufaha. The word as-sufaha comes from the root safaha. And the meaning of safaha, according to Arabic lexicon, is basically sixfold. Number one, someone whose intellect is not up to the standard. Number two, ignorant. Number three, someone whose opinion quickly changes and does not stay on one standard point. Also, someone who does not have any, so basically, someone who becomes extremely agitated and quickly changes his or her stance. Fourth is someone whose spirit or whose opinion in spiritual matters and worldly matters is not that great. Point number fifth is someone whose opinion holds absolutely no worth, no value whatsoever. And number six is someone who spends something which is extremely important and something which is extremely expensive without thinking twice about it. So someone who basically does not think properly before spending. So these are the six meanings of the root safaha. And from this, the word safi is mentioned, and the plural is sufaha. Safi would be the singular, which means any of these six things or all of these six things, and sufaha is the plural. And in short, this is a person who is foolish, ignorant. His or her opinion in terms of spiritual matters or worldly matters is not strong. Their opinion holds absolutely no worth. And these people quickly change their stance. And also, these are the same people who spend something which is extremely important, which is extremely expensive, and they spend it without thinking about it. So this is the meaning of the root safiha. And then the second root, the unique root which is mentioned in this root, is ya'lamun. Ya'lamun comes from the root ayn lam mim, which means ilm. Ilm means knowledge, and ya'lamun literally means they have knowledge of it, or they have knowledge. So from this root ayn lam mim, can you think of some words that appear in Arabic language that you are familiar with? What's up?
Ulama.
Ulama is the plural of alim. Alim is also from the same root. Ulama is the plural of alim. Anybody else? Shasa? Talim. No, very good. Talim means education. Again, so the meaning of knowledge or ilm is going to be fundamentally present in every single word which becomes a derivative from this root. Any other word? Mujib bhai?
Ilm.
Ilm again is from this root ilm. Muallim. Muallim means teacher.
Allama.
Allama, a great scholar. Alim, which is a sifa of Allah Ta'ala. Alim means all-knowing. Alimul Ghab. Similarly, Mutallim. Mutallam actually means a student, someone who is seeking education. Muallim is someone who is imparting education, someone who is teaching. And Mutallam is someone who is getting that education, in other words, a student. So you can see that from the same, if you understand the meaning of a single root, you can then come up with so many different words. Malum is something which is known. Something that you have knowledge of is called malum, and is also from the same root. And the meaning of alif lam and lam mim, ilm, is to not just know about something, but to know something with its intricacies, know something with its details, know the reality of something. This is called ilm. Now, with that said, let's focus our attention towards the message that this verse carries. Given the context of the verse and the background, we know that this statement is made by the Muslims towards the hypocrites that were present in the city of Medina. And the Muslims said to them that, why don't you people believe the way general masses have believed, or the way the honorable people in the society have believed? And the response that these hypocrites had was, Anominu kama amana sufaha, shall we believe the way foolish people have believed? Now this phrase sufaha, remember, it had 6 meanings. So I'm going to share some of those meanings in the context of this verse and what it means. It primarily, the word sufaha was used by the hypocrites for Muslims primarily for 2 reasons. Number one, they used to say that the Muslims are spending their wealth without thinking twice about it, meaning they're not smart about spending their wealth in the name of their religion. This was their primary objection. And the secondary objection that they was making was related to the lives, the sacrifice of own lives that the Muslims were presenting. In other words, these foolish people, the hypocrites were saying that Muslims are foolish, that they do not have intellect. If a wealthy person would perform financial sacrifices, they would say he's a show-off. And when a less well-to-do person, a poor person among the Muslims, would sacrifice something in the way of Allah Ta'ala, they would say, you don't even have anything to eat and here you are giving chanda. What kind of stupidity is this? This was the kind of allegation that these people were raising. And Quran talks about it, and I will present you some references. And the second allegation was that these hypocrites were saying that, look, we're the smarter ones. We are the smarter ones because neither do we spend from our wealth is protected. And us and our children are also protected because we do not take part in these futile exercises which end up costing us our lives. Whatever they considered as futile exercises was actually taking part in the defensive battles when Islam was being attacked. These hypocrites would find ways not to go and take part in the battles in order to protect the community, the city, the nation, which was being attacked. And they would try their level best so that their children also do not take part in this. In other words, they would be sitting with all comfort in their own homes, protecting their wealth from being spent in the name of religion, thinking that they're the smarter ones, that they're buddy-buddy with the disbelievers, and they have relations with the Muslims as well. So they would say that you are asking us to believe like the foolish people, whereas we are the smarter ones. And the response which their criticism was met with by Allah the Almighty is, Allah innahum humus sufahu walakin la ya'lamun. Beware, it is these people who are making these objections. They're the ones who are really, in reality, the foolish ones. The reality is that they do not understand. They do not have the eyes to perceive the reality. Now, when we look at the allegations, remember I presented the point that these people raised the allegations. The allegation that they raised against the Muslims were primarily twofold. Number one was that these people are spending without knowing or without thinking twice about where they're spending. And number two was that they're, foolishly sacrificing their lives. So Allah the Almighty recorded their allegations in other places in the Holy Quran. For example, in Surah Al-Munafiqun, an entire chapter which is titled Hypocrites, talks about different allegations that these people would raise from time to time. Allah Ta'ala says, these people would say, La tunfiqu ala man inda Rasulillahi hatta yanfaddu. That do not spend your wealth. Do not spend your wealth on people who are with Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam until these people actually disperse away from Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Similarly, at another place in Surah Tawbah, Ruku number 10, these people would say, and Allah Ta'ala recorded this, الَّذِينَ يَلْمِزُونَ الْمُطَوِّعِينَ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ فِي الصَّدَقَاتِ وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَجِدُونَ إِلَّا جُهْدَهُمْ فَيَسْخَرُونَ مِنْهُمْ, which means that these hypocrites would make fun of those people who were well-to-do, and they would say, look, you're a show-off, and that's the only reason why you're spending in the way of Allah Ta'ala. And someone who had no wealth, they would then raise the allegation, well, you're spending in the way of Allah, in the way of your religion, whereas you don't even have anything to eat. So why not, protect your money, spend it on your own self rather than spending in your religion. This was the way that these people would make fun of the believers. Then in another place, it is mentioned, إِذْ يَقُولُ الْمُنَافِقُونَ وَالَّذِينَ فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ مَرَضٌ غَرَّ هَؤُلَاءِ دِينُهُمْ. That these people who are the disbelievers and those in whose heart there is crookedness or there is some spiritual disease, what is it that they would do? غَرَّ هَؤُلَاءِ دِينُهُمْ. They will make fun of the believers, saying that the believers or the Muslims have become arrogant. Now imagine, the hypocrites are saying to the believers that the believers have become arrogant. And how have the believers become arrogant? The hypocrites would say that the ultimate victory and promises which are attached in the religion of Islam with the concept of financial sacrifices and physical sacrifices. These Muslims think about those sacrifices and then they're willing to sacrifice everything they had. They would look at Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala anhu, that Holy Prophet says that now is the time for financial sacrifice, and Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu was no millionaire. He was not a millionaire of his time. Hazrat Usman radiallahu ta'ala anhu was considered as a millionaire. By all standards, the wealth he had, one could say that maybe he was one of the richest people of the time. But Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala anhu was a very, if I may use the word, middle class in terms of one's financial wealth was concerned. He was not that rich person. And yet when the call to make financial sacrifices made, guess what he does? He brings every single thing that he has. Imagine what the hypocrites must be saying at that time. Then they look at the example of Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he brings half of his entire wealth. And we're talking about a single instance. Their entire life, if you study the life of the companions, especially Khulafai Rashideen and that of Kibar Sahaba, you realize that these were the folks, these were the people who were waiting for one hint from Holy Prophet ﷺ or Allah the Almighty, and they would bring every single thing that they had. Not only that, they would bring every single thing that they had, but they would be willing to sacrifice their own lives and the lives of their children for the sake of Islam. A very famous incident I would like to share at this point. Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala anhu's son was fighting against him during the Battle of Badr. He later accepted Islam, but during the Battle of Badr, Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq was fighting from the state of Medina, or on behalf of the state of Medina, and his own son is fighting against his father on behalf of the state of Makkah. After some time, after some years, the father and the son were sitting and they were having a casual conversation, and his son said that, "Oh my dear father, during the Battle of Badr, there did come upon a time when I saw that you were unprotected, that there was nobody around you to protect you, and I could have easily killed you had I wanted, but I did not." Look at the response which Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala anhu gave. He said, "By God, if I had found you in that position, I would have sacrificed you. I would have killed you without even thinking twice. Because at that time, you were attacking the community of the believers. You were attacking the state that I was representing." This is the level of sacrifice and belief that these Kibar Sahaba had. That they were not, hesitant in spending their wealth or their lives, sacrificing their lives for the sake of Islam. And this is what was very unsettling for the hypocrites. Hazrat Muslim Maud radiyallahu ta'ala anhu in his Tafsir Kabir, volume 1, page 180 says, and I would read this note, this is in Urdu and then I will try to paraphrase it into English language. He says, मोमिन दुनिया में सबसे बहादुर होता है क्योंकि उसकी नजर आसमान की तरफ होती है ना कि जमीन पर। जो कौम भी सच्ची कुर्बानी से डरती है तबाह होती है। जो अपने मालों को संभाल कर रखते हैं वही उन्हें जाया करते हैं। जो उन्हें सही तौर पर खर्च करते हैं उनके माल हजारों गुने बढ़कर वापस आते हैं। Hazrat Khalifatul Masih the second caliph to the promised Messiah Islam says in volume 1, page 180 of his commentary of the Holy Quran, he says, a believer is the most bravest of them all on the face of the earth. Why? Because he is not looking towards the earth. His eyes are fixated on the heavens. And then he says, whichever nation stays away or fears sacrificing in the way of Allah ultimately becomes destroyed. A nation or an individual who fears sacrificing in the way of Allah Ta'ala ultimately becomes destroyed. And those who try to not spend their wealth and hoard it and keep it with themselves, ultimately their wealth is destroyed by their own hands. And those who appropriately spend their wealth in the way of Allah the Almighty, they're the ones whose wealth is then multiplied 1,000 times and it is returned to them. Here, I would like to share one faith-inspiring incident. A week or so ago, our beloved Imam, Hazrat Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ayyadahullah Ta'ala bin Nasr al-Aziz, actually this past Friday, Hazur Anwar delivered his Friday sermon on the concept of Waqf-e-Jadid and financial sacrifices. And oftentimes we hear about sacrifices which were made the world over. We hear about the sacrifices and faith-inspiring incidents that take place in Pakistan, in India, in Africa. And now Hazur Anwar has been talking about, faith-inspiring incidents which he shared in his khutbah that took place in UK, in Canada. But what about USA? What about Virginia? What about people who are part of this congregation, who come to this masjid? What about them? Is there not a single person who spends in the way of Allah Ta'ala the way other MD Muslims in the other parts of the world are spending? And is there not a single MD who lives here and witnesses this promise of Allah Ta'ala that their wealth is multiplied manifolds and then returned back to them? The answer is yes, there are. There are such individuals. Without naming one, I would like to share a very faith-inspiring incident with you. This is of a member of Virginia Jamaat. I'm not going on purpose, I'm not going to name the Jamaat and I'm not going to name the individual, but I will share the experience of this specific family. This family received $500, or they had $500, and the year was ending. So they decided that they are actually going to spend all of $500 in the way of Allah Ta'ala. So the head of the household gave all the $500 that he had in Tariq-e-Jadid, Waqf-e-Jadid, and then ended up paying, some zakat as well. He says, literally, after a month or so, he was supposed to get $2,500 or so in his tax return from IRS. And it just so happened that the IRS wrote back to this individual saying that we have looked at your case, we have looked at your, whatever form that you submitted, and we came to this conclusion that you do not qualify. IRS is saying, we have come to this conclusion, you do not qualify for any tax return. So this individual was, of course, not expecting anything. Here, he gives the money for Tariq-e-Jadid, Waqf-e-Jadid, And literally within few weeks' time, IRS sent him a letter saying, we have reevaluated your case and we have come to the conclusion we made a mistake. And we're going to reimburse you. Or we are going to, not reimburse, but we're going to give you back the amount. And lo and behold, his $500 were indeed multiplied 5 times. And he received the amount in the upwards of $2,500. So, my dear brothers and sisters, do not think that these incidents that Hazur Anwar Aidahul Ibn Aziz quotes in his Friday sermons are only for Ahmadi Muslims living the world abroad, the world over. It is happening in our own backyard. It's just that, do we have the same desire to experience what other Ahmadi Muslims in the world are experiencing? And here I would like to end tonight's class on one last point. Allah the Almighty recorded another statement regarding the hypocrites in the Holy Quran. He says, وَلَا تُعْجِبْكَ أَمْوَالُهُمْ وَأَوْلَادُهُمْ إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ أَنْ يُعَذِّبَهُمْ بِهَا فِي الدُّنْيَا وَتَزْهَقَ أَنفُسُهُمْ وَهُمْ كَافِرُونَ. Surah Tawbah, Ruku number 11. Which means that these hypocrite people, they are boasting and are arrogant about the fact that they have their wealth and they have their children with them. Meaning, neither they sacrifice their wealth, nor do they sacrifice their time, their efforts, or their persons for the sake of the religion. And they think that their assets are well protected. However, the Muslims shall not be duped by this. And they should know that this wealth and such behavior of the hypocrites is not going to protect these hypocrites from the ultimate punishment that Allah has in store for these hypocrites. Not only in the hereafter, but know this, that these people would die in a state of disbelief and they are going to be rejected by Allah the Almighty in this very life as well. This is a very profound warning by Allah the Almighty regarding such individuals. There was one such man whom Quran talks about. His name was Abdullah ibn Ubay bin Sulul. He was the leader of the hypocrites. All the things, all the definitions of a hypocrite were easily applied on him. He saw the ultimate victory of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He saw the victory of Islam with his own very eyes. And he saw the Muslims who spent their wealth and their lives for the sake of Islam became victorious. And he also saw his own child, his own son, accept Islam and then excel in Islam, which also became a source of torment for this individual. In his case, his son actually accepted Islam and excelled in Islam. But in many other cases, where parents are hypocrites, many a times it is observed that their behavior gets passed down to their children as well. So let's make a firm pledge that inshallah ta'ala, we will not be among those who are considered as hypocrites in the eyes of Allah ta'ala, but rather we will bring forth that uswa of Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, and Hazrat Umar radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, and Hazrat Usman radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, and Hazrat Ali radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. We will bring back their model back in this world, and we will inshallah ta'ala be counted among those who sacrifice everything for the sake of Allah the Almighty, who keep Allah the Almighty as the primary focus of theirs in this life and the next, so that Allah the Almighty blesses them and forgives them their shortcomings and accepts them in His ultimate glory. Ameen. Wa akhiru dawana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. And Jazakallah to everyone for coming out and joining us tonight.